The Galactic Council chamber stretched across nearly 2 kilometers of polished crystalline floors, its vaulted ceilings disappearing into artificial stars that mimicked the home skies of 100 different worlds. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in their species-specific environmental pods, breathing their native atmospheres while engaging in the most heated debate the Council had witnessed in over 3 centuries. Ambassador Thektar of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the central podium, his forearms gesticulating wildly as bioluminescent patches along his scaled neck flared in agitation. The translator matrix rendered his clicking, hissing speech into the common tongue that echoed through the chamber. The hegemony has crossed every line of civilized warfare. Thektar's voice crackled with electronic distortion. They have glassed entire agricultural worlds, leaving billions to starve. They have weaponized stellar matter, turning suns into bombs. They have lies and propaganda. The interruption came from Overlord Vexhai, whose species had evolved from silicon-based crystalline structures. Her body rang like a bell as she struck the podium with one of her razor-sharp appendages. The collective speaks only of our defensive measures while ignoring their own atrocities. Tell the Council about the bioweapons you unleashed on Kepler 442b. Tell them about the children. Enough. The voice that silenced both speakers belonged to Chancellor Mordun, an ancient being whose species had achieved spaceflight when most of the galaxy was still cooling from stellar formation. His words carried the weight of millennia. We have heard these accusations for 47 standard cycles. The war between the Zephyrian Collective and the crystalline hegemony has consumed 17 star systems and claimed over 2 trillion lives. It must end. In the observation gallery reserved for non-voting species, Ambassador Sarah Chen of the Terran Federation sat quietly in her modest environmental suit. Unlike the exotic appearances of the other representatives, she looked remarkably ordinary, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and tired eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She had been attending these sessions for months, always listening, never speaking. The humans were new to the galactic stage. Their first contact had occurred only 50 years ago when a routine deep space mining operation had stumbled across a Zephyrian scout ship. Since then, they had been granted observer status in the Council, allowed to watch and learn but not to participate in galactic politics. Most species considered them a curiosity, bipedal mammals from a water-rich world who had somehow developed faster than light travel despite their relatively recent emergence from their planet's surface. The Terran observer requests permission to address the Council. The voice from the translation matrix caused a ripple of surprise through the chamber. Chancellor Mordun's ancient eyes focused on the human section with something approaching amusement. The observer status grants no speaking privileges, Ambassador Chen, the Chancellor replied, not unkindly. Perhaps you would prefer to submit a written statement for the record? Sarah stood slowly, her movements careful and deliberate. With respect, Chancellor, I invoke Article 73 of the Galactic Accords. Any species may address the Council if they possess information vital to the preservation of galactic stability. The chamber fell silent. In 3,000 years of recorded Council history, Article 73 had been invoked fewer than a dozen times. When it had been used, it typically preceded declarations of war or revelations that changed the balance of power across star systems. Chancellor Mordun consulted with his advisors for several minutes before responding. Very well, Ambassador Chen. The Council recognizes your right to speak. However, any false claims will result in immediate expulsion from this body and potential sanctions against your species. Sarah walked to the central podium with measured steps. The environmental suit speakers amplified her voice as she addressed the assembled representatives. Honored delegates, my species has observed this conflict with growing concern. We have remained silent because we believed our inexperience with galactic affairs made our opinions irrelevant. We were wrong. She paused, letting her words settle before continuing. 3 days ago, long-range sensors detected a massive energy buildup in the hegemony's primary research facility in the Vega system. Analysis of the quantum signatures suggests they are constructing a planet-killer weapon of unprecedented scale. Not a stellar converter like those used previously, but something far more devastating. Overlord Vexhai's crystalline form rang with harmonic frequencies that the translator rendered as harsh laughter. Preposterous. The humans lack the technology to detect quantum signatures at interstellar distances. This is clearly fabricated intelligence provided by collective spies. You're correct, Sarah replied calmly. We don't have that technology. The admission sent confused murmurs through the chamber. Ambassador Thektar leaned forward in his environmental pod. Then, how, we sent a ship? Sarah's simple statement hit the assembly like a physical blow. The Federation vessel Endurance conducted a reconnaissance mission to the Vega system. We have visual confirmation of the weapon. The silence that followed was absolute. Faster-than-light travel required precise calculations and massive energy expenditures. The journey from Earth to Vega normally took 12 standard days even with the most advanced propulsion systems available to Council species. For the humans to have detected the weapon construction, traveled to Vega, conducted reconnaissance, and returned to Council space would have required. Impossible, Chancellor Mordun whispered. The round trip alone would require 26 days minimum. Our intelligence networks detected the Hegemony's construction project only 4 days ago. Sarah activated a holographic projector built into her suit's forearm. The image that materialized above the podium showed a massive space station unlike anything in the galactic database. Twisted spires of crystalline machinery surrounded a central chamber that pulsed with ominous energy. The scale was breathtaking, the structure dwarfed the nearby asteroid mining platforms. The weapon is designed to destabilize subspace across entire sectors, Sarah explained. According to our analysis, a single firing would make faster-than-light travel impossible within a 50 light-year radius. Any ships caught in the affected area would be stranded permanently. The implications struck every delegate simultaneously. Galactic civilization depended entirely on FTL travel and communication. A weapon that could create impassable barriers through space would effectively cut the galaxy into isolated fragments. Overlord Vexhi's harmonic frequencies shifted to registers that the translator couldn't render. When she finally spoke, her words carried a metallic undertone of desperation. Even if this intelligence is accurate, the hegemony would never deploy such a weapon. The disruption would affect our own territories unless you plan to fire it from outside your borders and trap your enemies in the affected zones, Ambassador Thektar interrupted. His bioluminescent patches had shifted to deep red, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. How many collective worlds fall within 50 light-years of the Vega system? The holographic display updated, showing stellar cartography overlaid with potential blast radii. The answer was clearly visible: 17 star systems, including the collective's 3 most populous worlds. Chancellor Mordun rose from his position, his ancient form moving with surprising grace. If this intelligence is accurate, we face a threat to galactic civilization itself. Ambassador Chen, what response does your Federation propose? Sarah had been waiting for this question. The weapon must be destroyed before it becomes operational. However, the crystalline hegemony's defenses around Vega are substantial. Any direct assault would require a coordinated fleet action involving multiple Council species. The hegemony would interpret such action as an act of war by the entire Council, Chancellor Mordun observed. We would be trading one conflict for a larger one. Perhaps, Sarah agreed. But, there is another option. My government has authorized me to offer Federation assistance in a joint operation. We possess certain capabilities that might prove useful in a covert mission. The chamber erupted in discussion as delegates consulted with their governments through quantum-encrypted channels. The idea of involving the humans in galactic military affairs was unprecedented. Most species still viewed them as primitive newcomers whose technology lagged centuries behind established civilizations. Overlord Vexhi's voice cut through the chatter. What capabilities could a barely spacefaring species offer that our combined fleets cannot provide? Sarah's expression remained neutral, but something in her eyes suggested depths that the galactic powers had failed to perceive. Speed, Overlord. As you noted, our reconnaissance of Vega should have been impossible given known travel times. The Federation has developed propulsion technology that operates on different principles than standard FTL drives. She paused, allowing the implications to sink in. Our ships can reach Vega, conduct operations, and return before the hegemony's sensors detect we were ever there. The silence that followed was pregnant with possibility. Every species in the galaxy had spent millennia perfecting variations of the same basic faster-than-light principles. The idea that the newcomer humans had discovered an entirely different approach challenged fundamental assumptions about technological development. Ambassador Thektar was the first to speak. Assuming your claims are accurate, what would the Federation require in exchange for this assistance? Sarah had hoped someone would ask this question. Full council membership with voting rights, access to the galactic trade networks, and formal recognition of human sovereignty over our current territorial claims. The price was steep but not unreasonable. If the humans could indeed destroy the planet-killer weapon, they would have saved galactic civilization from potential fragmentation. Such a service warranted significant compensation. Chancellor Mordun called for a recess to allow the delegates to consult with their home governments. As the chamber emptied, Sarah remained at the podium, studying the holographic display of the hegemony weapon. She had not lied to the council, but neither had she told them the complete truth. The Federation did possess faster-than-light technology that surpassed anything in the galactic database. What she hadn't mentioned was how humanity had acquired it. 50 years ago, when the first Zephyrian scout ship had encountered human miners in the outer solar system, the contact had not gone as officially recorded. The alien vessel had been damaged, its crew desperate and far from home. Human engineers had not just provided assistance, they had reverse-engineered every piece of technology they could access before the Zephyrians departed. In the decades that followed, human scientists had taken those stolen blueprints and improved upon them. Where alien engineers had focused on efficiency and established principles, humans had embraced experimentation and radical innovation. The result was a hybrid technology base that combined the best of galactic science with uniquely human approaches to problem solving. The Federation's reconnaissance of Vega had indeed been conducted by a single ship. What Sarah hadn't mentioned was that the same vessel had also deployed a network of quantum-entangled sensor platforms throughout the hegemony's territory. Humanity now possessed near real-time intelligence on crystalline military activities across 17 star systems. As delegates began returning to the chamber, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The galactic powers had spent 47 years treating humans as harmless observers. They were about to discover their mistake. The vote, when it came, was closer than expected. Several species worried about setting precedents for new council members, while others questioned whether humanity could deliver on their promises. In the end, the fear of galactic fragmentation outweighed political concerns. The motion passed by a margin of 3 votes. Sarah stood once more at the podium as Chancellor Mordun formally addressed her. Ambassador Chen, the Galactic Council hereby authorizes a joint operation to neutralize the threat to galactic stability. You have 7 standard days to demonstrate your species' capabilities. Understood, Chancellor. The Federation fleet will depart within 12 hours. As Sarah gathered her materials and prepared to leave, Overlord Vexhai approached the human section. Her crystalline form chimed softly as she spoke in a frequency barely above the translator's threshold. You are either very brave or very foolish, mammal. The Vega system is defended by 17 battle groups and a fortress platform that could destroy most council fleets. What makes you believe your people can succeed where our combined forces would fail? Sarah looked up at the towering crystalline being and spoke in a voice too quiet for the chamber's recording systems to capture. Because, Overlord, you've been fighting this war according to rules that humans never learned. We're about to show you what happens when someone ignores those rules entirely. As the human delegation departed the council chamber, none of the assembled aliens noticed the small device Sarah left behind. No larger than a grain of sand, it would monitor all council communications for the duration of the mission. After all, if humanity was going to join galactic civilization, they needed to understand exactly what they were getting into. The war between the collective and the hegemony was about to become far more complicated than either side had anticipated. Humanity's long period of observation was ending. What came next would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be human. The Federation battleship Prometheus hung in the void between stars, its hull black against the cosmic background radiation. Unlike the sleek, artistic designs favored by Council species, the human vessel looked brutal and functional. Angular plates of armor covered every surface, bristling with weapons systems that followed no recognizable galactic classification. Admiral Marcus Torres stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display that showed their position relative to the Vega system. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements precise and economical. The bridge itself defied galactic conventions, cramped, dimly lit, and filled with redundant systems that could function independently if primary networks failed. "Jump calculations complete, Admiral," reported Navigation Officer Kim Nakamura. "We're holding position 3 light hours outside the Vega system perimeter. Stealth systems are active, and we're reading 0 emissions on all frequencies." Torres nodded, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of holographic displays. At 63, he was old for a starship commander by human standards, but his experience with alien contact protocols made him invaluable for this mission. He had been present at first contact 50 years ago, watching from the bridge of a mining vessel as humanity's place in the galaxy changed forever. Communications, establish quantum link with Council oversight. The main display shifted to show Ambassador Chen in the Council chambers on Proxima Station. Behind her, Torres could see representatives from a dozen species monitoring the mission. Their environmental suits and life support systems created a bizarre tableau of alien forms gathered around holographic projectors. "Admiral Torres, you are cleared to begin reconnaissance," Chen's voice carried across the quantum link with minimal delay. "Council forces are standing by, but remember, this is primarily a human operation. Any failure reflects on our entire species." "Understood, Ambassador. Beginning approach now." Torres turned to his tactical officer. "Commander Singh, deploy the scout drones. Full spectrum analysis of the target system." Lieutenant Commander Priya Singh's fingers danced across her control surfaces, launching a spread of stealth drones toward the Vega system. The devices were marvels of human engineering, each no larger than a basketball, powered by miniaturized fusion cores and equipped with sensor arrays that could detect energy signatures from light years away. Unlike alien reconnaissance technology, which relied on passive scanning to avoid detection, human drones took a radically different approach. They actively penetrated enemy sensor networks, appearing as ghost readings or sensor malfunctions rather than foreign objects. The technique required precise timing and intimate knowledge of alien detection systems, knowledge humanity had acquired through decades of careful observation. "First drone reports contact with perimeter defenses," Singh announced. "Reading 47 hegemony vessels in defensive formation around the primary target. Configuration suggests they're expecting a conventional assault." The tactical display updated to show the crystalline hegemony's forces arrayed around the massive weapon platform. Battle cruisers formed a protective shell while fighter squadrons patrolled the outer reaches of the system. It was an impressive defensive arrangement by galactic standards, more than enough firepower to destroy any conceivable attack fleet. Torres smiled grimly. Galactic standards were about to become irrelevant. "Commander Singh, what's the status on their sensor grid?" "Analyzing now, sir." Singh's display showed a complex web of detection zones overlapping throughout the system. Standard gravitational monitoring, quantum flux detectors, and, interesting, they've deployed some kind of exotic matter scanner. "I've never seen that configuration before." "Neither have they," Torres replied. "It's a new installation, probably designed to detect collective stealth technology. Deploy countermeasure package Delta." The Prometheus launched a series of specialized drones that began broadcasting false sensor readings throughout the Vega system. To hegemony observers, it would appear that the collective was probing their defenses with stealth scouts, exactly what they expected to see. The deception would mask the real reconnaissance mission while providing cover for the main assault. On Proxima Station, the Council representatives watched in fascination as human tactical doctrine unfolded. Ambassador Thektar leaned forward in his environmental pod, his bioluminescent patches flickering with concentration. "Their approach is remarkably sophisticated," he observed to Chancellor Mordun. They're not simply avoiding detection, they're actively manipulating enemy sensors to see what they want them to see. Indeed, the ancient chancellor replied. I begin to understand why their reconnaissance of this system went undetected. The question remains whether they can translate deception into effective action. Aboard the Prometheus, Admiral Torres was asking himself the same question. The intelligence gathered by their scout drones had revealed the full scope of the hegemony weapon. The device was even more dangerous than initially estimated, capable of creating subspace disruption fields that could last for centuries rather than decades. Sir, Communications Officer David Park announced, we're receiving encrypted transmissions from our deep cover assets within the hegemony fleet. Torres raised an eyebrow. The Council Oversight Team believed this was humanity's first major military operation in alien space. They had no idea that Federation intelligence had been placing human operatives throughout crystalline territory for 20 years. Display the intel on secondary screens only, Torres ordered. The information would remain invisible to Council observers while providing crucial tactical updates. The intelligence was sobering. The hegemony planned to activate their weapon within 48 hours, targeting not just collective territory but several neutral systems that might pose future threats. The list included 3 Council member worlds and, surprisingly, the Sol system. Humanity's home star was marked for subspace isolation. Torres felt a familiar cold fury settle in his chest. The crystalline hegemony had just made a critical error, they had threatened Earth. Every human in the Federation fleet shared the same genetic imperative that had driven their species from caves to stars: protect the home territory at any cost. All hands, this is the Admiral, Torres announced over the ship's communication system. Intelligence confirms the target weapon poses a direct threat to Earth and human colonies. Rules of engagement are now unlimited. Repeat, unlimited engagement authority is in effect. On the bridge, the crew's demeanor shifted subtly. Training protocols that emphasized restraint and measured response gave way to something far more primal. Weapons systems that had been powered down came online. Shield generators that had been operating at minimal levels surged to full capacity. The Prometheus was no longer conducting a reconnaissance mission. It had become a predator stalking its prey. Navigation, prepare for tactical jump. Take us to Point Alpha. The ship's experimental jump drive engaged with a sound like reality tearing. Unlike standard FTL systems that required careful approach vectors and lengthy charging periods, the human drive could translate the vessel instantly across interstellar distances. The technology was based on principles that galactic science considered theoretically impossible: direct manipulation of spacetime rather than movement through higher dimensions. The Prometheus materialized inside the Vega system's asteroid belt, hidden among the tumbling rocks and debris. Hegemony sensors registered nothing more than a minor gravitational fluctuation easily dismissed as normal stellar phenomena. From their concealed position, Torres could see the weapon platform with unprecedented clarity. The structure was a masterpiece of crystalline engineering, its faceted surfaces reflecting starlight like a massive jewel. Energy conduits pulsed with power that could reshape local spacetime, while defensive systems tracked potential threats across millions of cubic kilometers. Target analysis complete, Singh reported. The weapon's primary weakness appears to be the central power coupling. If we can overload the exotic matter containment, the entire structure should collapse into a quantum singularity. What's required for the overload? Direct insertion of antimatter charges into the containment housing. The challenge is getting past their defensive grid without triggering an early activation of the weapon. Torres studied the tactical display, noting the patrol patterns of hegemony vessels and the positioning of defensive platforms. A conventional assault would require destroying the entire defensive fleet before approaching the weapon, a task that would take hours and guarantee the platform's activation as a final act of desperation. Humanity needed a different approach. Prepare the Sparrow teams for deployment. Throughout the ship, specialized assault pods began launching toward the weapon platform. Each pod contained a 4-person team equipped with the most advanced stealth technology in the human arsenal. Their mission was simple: infiltrate the crystalline facility and plant charges in the power coupling system. The teams moved through space like ghosts, their pods' adaptive camouflage rendering them invisible to sensors and visual observation. Human military doctrine emphasized small unit tactics and asymmetric warfare, concepts that alien military strategists had never encountered. Galactic conflicts typically involved massive fleet engagements with clearly defined battle lines and predictable outcomes. The idea of inserting ground forces into an enemy facility while a space battle raged above was considered impossibly complex and tactically unsound. They had never fought humans before. The first Sparrow team reached the weapon platform's outer hull and began cutting through crystalline armor with molecular disruptors. The hegemony's internal sensors detected nothing. The human equipment operated on frequencies that crystalline technology couldn't perceive. Meanwhile, Admiral Torres prepared the next phase of the operation. The Prometheus began moving through the asteroid belt, positioning itself for a direct assault on the hegemony fleet. The ship's experimental weapons systems, particle beams that could ignore conventional shields and kinetic projectiles that approached significant percentages of light speed, would give the enemy their first taste of human military technology. On Proxima Station, the Council representatives watched in amazement as human forces seemed to materialize throughout the Vega system. Scanner readings showed Federation troops inside the weapon platform, while their battleship maintained perfect concealment among the asteroids. How are they doing this? Overlord Vexhai demanded. Our most advanced stealth systems couldn't penetrate those defenses. Ambassador Chun allowed herself a small smile. Human warfare doctrine is based on principles that most species would consider counterintuitive. We don't seek to overpower our enemies, we seek to outthink them. The truth was more complex than Chen's diplomatic answer suggested. Humanity's approach to warfare had been shaped by their unique evolutionary history. As apex predators who had climbed to the top of their food chain through intelligence rather than strength, humans instinctively understood the value of deception, misdirection, and asymmetric tactics. While other galactic species had developed space combat from defensive and territorial instincts, humans approached it as a form of hunting. The goal wasn't to prove superiority or claim territory, it was to eliminate threats as efficiently as possible. The hegemony was about to learn why humans had never been conquered by their own species, despite thousands of years of internal warfare. Admiral Singh announced, all Sparrow teams report successful insertion. Charges are in position and armed. Torres nodded, his hand hovering over the tactical controls. Around him, the bridge crew prepared for what would become the largest space battle in human history. Signal all teams, execute on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. Throughout the weapon platform, antimatter charges detonated simultaneously. The exotic matter containment system collapsed in a cascade failure that sent energy readings spiking across the entire star system. Emergency klaxons began wailing aboard hegemony vessels as their sensors registered the impossible, their impregnable fortress was collapsing from within. The Prometheus emerged from the asteroid belt like an avenging angel, its weapons already firing at the nearest crystalline battlecruiser. Human projectiles punched through alien shields as if they didn't exist, tearing through hull plating and critical systems with devastating efficiency. The Battle of Vega had begun, and the galaxy was about to discover that humanity's 50 years of peaceful observation had been merely the calm before an unprecedented storm. Admiral Torres watched the weapon platform collapse into a controlled quantum singularity, its exotic matter safely contained and neutralized. Around him, his crew prepared to face 17 battle groups of enemy vessels with nothing but their training, their technology, and the absolute certainty that failure was not an option. The crystalline hegemony had wanted to fragment the galaxy and isolate Earth from the rest of human space. Instead, they had awakened something that had been sleeping in the outer rim of Council territory, the descendants of a species that had conquered their home world not through superior technology, but through an absolute refusal to accept defeat. The real war was just beginning. The bridge of the hegemony flagship Eternal Resonance shuddered under the impact of human weapons fire. Admiral Kethvor watched in disbelief as his defensive formation crumbled around him. In 40 years of military service, he had never encountered tactics like those being employed by the human fleet. "Report," he commanded, his crystalline voice ringing with harmonic overtones that indicated extreme stress. "Unknown energy signatures throughout our formation," his tactical officer responded. Their projectiles are bypassing our shield matrices entirely. Defensive Station 7 has gone silent, and we're reading massive hull breaches on the shattered light. HFY War studied the holographic display showing the battle's progression. The human vessels moved like nothing he had ever encountered, appearing and disappearing throughout the system in a pattern that defied conventional strategic logic. Their weapons fired from impossible angles, striking vulnerable points that should have been protected by overlapping defensive fields. How many enemy vessels are we facing? Scanner analysis indicates 1 capital ship and approximately 30 smaller craft. Admiral, this doesn't match the intelligence profiles for human military capability. 1 ship. The mammals had sent 1 ship against 17 battlegroups of the hegemony's finest vessels, and they were winning. Aboard the Prometheus, Admiral Torres coordinated the battle with calm precision. The tactical display showed the positions of his 30 Sparrow-class assault ships as they executed hit-and-run attacks throughout the enemy formation. Each vessel was crewed by 12 specialists and armed with weapons that could cripple ships 10 times their size. Echo Squadron reports successful strike on the command vessel, Communications Officer Park announced. Target's primary shield generators are offline. Good. Delta Squadron, begin your attack run on the supply vessels. Foxtrot, I want you to eliminate their sensor platforms. The human attack pattern was deceptively simple. Rather than engaging in direct fleet combat, Torres was systematically dismantling the hegemony's ability to coordinate their defense. Communications arrays, sensor networks, and command structures were being eliminated with surgical precision, leaving enemy ships isolated and confused. On Proxima Station, the Council representatives watched the battle unfold with mounting amazement. The holographic display showed human forces operating throughout the Vega system like a swarm of deadly insects, striking at will and disappearing before effective countermeasures could be deployed. "This is impossible," Ambassador Thektar muttered, his bioluminescent patches flashing in agitation. "Our tactical computers predict that human forces should have been eliminated within the first 10 minutes of engagement." Chancellor Mordun observed the battle with ancient eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of stellar empires. "Their approach suggests a fundamental misunderstanding of galactic warfare doctrine," he noted. "They're not trying to claim territory or demonstrate superior firepower. They appear to be treating this as an extermination." Ambassador Chen listened to the Council's growing alarm with satisfaction. Humanity's reputation as peaceful observers was being permanently rewritten with each successful strike against hegemony forces. The species that had sat quietly in council chambers for 50 years was revealing capabilities that challenged every assumption about technological development and military strategy. The truth was that human military doctrine had evolved from millions of years of predatory evolution. While other species had developed space combat from territorial and defensive instincts, humans approached warfare as sophisticated pack hunters. Their tactics emphasized coordination, adaptability, and the systematic elimination of threats rather than the demonstration of superior force. Admiral Torres, Chen spoke into the quantum communicator. Council representatives are requesting a tactical analysis. They want to understand how you're achieving these results. Torres glanced at the oversight channel, noting the alien representatives clustered around their displays like scientists studying a new species. "Tell them that human warfare doctrine is based on a simple principle, Ambassador. We don't fight wars to prove we're stronger than our enemies. We fight wars to make sure they can't threaten us again." The distinction was more significant than most council species could comprehend. Galactic conflicts typically ended with negotiated settlements, territorial exchanges, and formal peace treaties. The idea of seeking the complete elimination of an enemy's military capacity was considered primitively barbaric by civilized standards. Humans had different standards. "Sir," Commander Singh reported from her tactical station, "enemy forces are attempting to withdraw to the outer system. They're abandoning the weapon platform debris field." Torres studied the enemy's movements, noting the formation patterns that suggested a tactical retreat rather than a rout. Admiral HFY War was an experienced commander who recognized when a battle could not be won. The question was whether Torres would allow him to escape with his remaining forces intact. The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep within the Prometheus's encrypted communication networks, Admiral Torres received a priority message from Federation Command. The transmission was brief and carried the highest possible security clearance. Operation Clean Slate authorized. Eliminate all hegemony forces in Vega system. Leave no survivors. Torres felt a chill run down his spine. Clean slate protocols had never been implemented in galactic space. They represented humanity's most extreme military doctrine, the complete eradication of threats to ensure they could never resurface. The authorization meant that Federation intelligence had identified something in the hegemony's plans that posed an existential threat to human civilization. All units, this is Admiral Torres. Rules of engagement have changed. No hegemony vessels are to leave this system. Repeat, no survivors. The tone shift in the human fleet was immediate and unmistakable. Vessels that had been conducting precision strikes began launching broader attacks. Weapons that had been used selectively now fired at maximum capacity. The hunters had become exterminators. On the Eternal Resonance, Admiral HFY watched in horror as his retreat became a massacre. Human forces that had been content to disable ships and eliminate command structures now systematically destroyed everything in their path. Escape pods were targeted along with capital ships. Supply vessels exploded alongside battle cruisers. "They're not taking prisoners," his tactical officer reported, his voice carrying harmonic frequencies of terror. "Admiral, they're killing everyone." HFY understood with crystalline clarity that he was facing a species unlike any in the galactic database. The humans weren't conducting warfare according to civilized conventions. They were engaged in what his people would recognize as a clan killing, the complete elimination of a genetic line to prevent future retaliation. "Signal surrender," he ordered. "Full diplomatic immunity protocols. Offer complete capitulation." The response came directly from the Prometheus in the form of a concentrated particle beam that punched through the Eternal Resonance's command section. Admiral HFY's last conscious thought was that the mammals had just violated every convention of galactic warfare. Humans had never agreed to those conventions. Within 6 hours, the Vega system was silent except for the expanding debris fields that marked the positions of 17 hegemony battle groups. Not a single crystalline vessel had escaped to carry word of the battle to their home territories. On Proxima Station, the council chamber had erupted into chaos. Representatives from dozens of species shouted over each other in languages that strained the translation matrix beyond its capacity. The holographic displays showing the aftermath of the battle told a story that challenged fundamental assumptions about humanity's place in galactic civilization. "This is genocide." Overlord Vexhi's crystalline form rang with frequencies of outrage. "The humans have slaughtered an entire fleet. They refused surrender and killed prisoners." The hegemony forces were attempting to deploy a weapon that would have fragmented galactic civilization, Ambassador Chen replied calmly. "Extreme threats require extreme responses." Chancellor Mordun raised his hand for silence, his ancient authority still commanding respect despite the chaos. "Ambassador Chen, your species has demonstrated military capabilities far beyond anything in Council records. You have also revealed tactical approaches that violate established conventions of galactic warfare. The Council demands explanations." Chen stood slowly, her environmental suit speakers projecting her voice clearly through the chamber. Around her, alien representatives leaned forward in their pods, waiting for answers that would reshape their understanding of humanity's true nature. "Honored Chancellor, my species has spent 50 years observing galactic civilization and learning your customs. We have studied your laws, your technologies, and your methods of resolving conflicts. What we discovered is that your approaches work well for species that evolved from prey animals or territorial defenders." She paused, letting the implications settle. "Humans evolved differently. We are apex predators who developed intelligence as a hunting tool. When we identify threats to our survival, we eliminate them completely. We don't negotiate with dangers, we remove them." The chamber fell silent as representatives absorbed this information. Most galactic species had evolved from herbivorous or omnivorous backgrounds, developing spaceflight as extensions of their territorial or defensive instincts. The idea that an entire civilization might be descended from pack hunters was genuinely alien to their understanding. You're saying that human military doctrine is based on predatory behaviors? Ambassador Thektar asked, his bioluminescent patches dim with uncertainty. Exactly, Chen confirmed. When faced with the hegemony weapon, we didn't see a military target to be captured or disabled. We saw a threat to be eliminated. The question wasn't how to defeat their forces, it was how to ensure they could never threaten us again. The distinction was more than philosophical. Council species approached warfare as a form of elaborate negotiation, with battles serving as demonstrations of strength that led to diplomatic settlements. The human approach treated combat as a biological imperative, the elimination of threats to ensure species survival. And, what of the crystalline hegemony's remaining territories? Chancellor Mordun asked. Will your forces pursue the survivors to their home worlds? Chen considered the question carefully. Federation Command had provided clear guidance on this issue, but the political implications were staggering. The hegemony leadership authorized a weapon designed to isolate human space from the rest of the galaxy. They specifically targeted Earth for subspace fragmentation. From humanity's perspective, they declared war on our entire species. She activated her suit's holographic projector, displaying star charts that showed hegemony territory in relation to human colonies. Federation forces are currently en route to 17 crystalline star systems. We expect all military resistance to be eliminated within 120 standard hours. The chamber erupted again as representatives realized the full scope of human military action. While the Council had been debating the proper response to the Vega incident, humanity had launched a coordinated campaign to destroy the crystalline hegemony as a political entity. This is madness. Overlord Vexhai protested. You cannot simply exterminate an entire civilization. We're not exterminating their civilization, Chen replied. We're eliminating their ability to threaten other civilizations. Crystalline colonies will be occupied and placed under Federation administration. Non-military populations will be relocated to suitable worlds outside our sphere of influence. But their government, their military, and their industrial capacity will cease to exist. The implications were staggering. Humanity was announcing the complete conquest and dissolution of one of the galaxy's major powers. The crystalline hegemony, which had controlled over 30 star systems for 3 centuries, would be erased from the political map. And the Zephyrian Collective? Chancellor Mordun asked. What are your intentions regarding the other belligerent in this conflict? Chen smiled slightly. The collective posed no direct threat to human interests. Ambassador Thektar's government has already agreed to formal peace negotiations with Federation mediators. We expect a comprehensive settlement within the next few weeks. The message was clear: humanity would not tolerate threats to their existence, but they were willing to work with species that posed no danger. The galaxy's political order was being rewritten according to human strategic priorities. Over the following months, the transformation of galactic civilization became undeniable. Federation fleets emerged from the Outer Rim territories with technology and tactics that rendered existing military doctrines obsolete. Human industrial capacity, hidden for decades behind a facade of primitive development, revealed itself as equal to or superior to any Council species. Most significantly, humanity's approach to diplomacy proved as revolutionary as their warfare. Rather than the complex negotiations and ceremonial protocols favored by established powers, humans offered simple alternatives: cooperation or elimination. Species that posed no threats found themselves courted as trading partners and allies. Those that challenged human interests simply disappeared. Within a standard year, the Terran Federation had become the galaxy's dominant military power. Council meetings now revolved around human policy positions, and galactic trade networks operated according to Federation standards. The quiet observers who had sat peacefully in the outer gallery had revealed themselves as the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever known. Ambassador Chen, now serving as humanity's first galactic chancellor, addressed the transformed council from the position once held by ancient beings like Mordun. Around her, representatives from over 200 species listened with the careful attention that prey animals showed to apex predators. The Federation's position remains unchanged, she announced. We seek peaceful coexistence with all species that pose no threat to human interests. We offer technology, protection, and prosperity to those willing to work within our expanding sphere of influence. She paused, her eyes scanning the assembled delegates. However, any species that threatens human worlds, human lives, or human interests will be dealt with according to our established protocols. The crystalline hegemony learned the consequences of challenging humanity. We trust that no other civilization will require similar lessons. The galaxy had indeed learned. In the Outer Rim territories, human colonies expanded at an unprecedented rate. Federation technology transformed entire star systems, while human military forces patrolled trade routes with unquestioned authority. The age of council democracy had ended, replaced by something far more efficient and infinitely more dangerous. They had thought humans would stay out of their war. They had been catastrophically wrong. Now they were discovering what it meant to live in a galaxy where the apex predators had finally revealed themselves.